Welcome to the Copper King Mine and Railroad. Today we're going back in time to look at the early mine. So stay tuned.
Today we're going to bring out the old steam engine. We're going back in time to talk about the early mine. Because of the steam shovel and the steam train, they were able to mass produce this low-grade ore and make copper. So we're going to take a look at that and look at the early pictures of the diggings at the Bingham Canyon mine. They'll use steam power until the 1920s, and then the whole mine will be converted to electricity. We need to bring this old steam engine out every once in a while because it's just fun to watch. Today we're going to talk about the early mine and look at some great pictures of that. The first picture was taken in 1904. Now this was before open cut mining started at Bingham. And to the right is this huge mountain. This will totally be removed and will become the pit one day. But for right now, they got to remove this mountain. So let's show some pictures of them working on this mountain. April 1906, Robert Gimbel and Daniel Jacklin of Utah Copper, they went to Minnesota to study the open pit mining methods at the Mesabi iron mine, mostly the steam shovel and steam train operations. Utah Copper will start their open pit operations in August of 1906. Boston Consolidated Copper will start theirs a couple of months earlier in June of 1906. So look at some of these early pictures of the mine. You can see that both operations are taking place on the same mountain. On the top, the Boston Consolidated, and Utah Copper on the bottom. Now they will merge in 1910, but for right now they're both digging away at the mountain. Now this photo was taken in 1906 and it's called the first steam shovel from Utah Copper. And then this other picture right here is a year later, 1907, in about the same spot. Just think about them attacking this mountainside, trying to reach the ore body. And this railroad on these levels, then trying to get the railroad down to the main line that went to the mill. That was all the way down at the bottom of the canyon. That was at 6340. Now look at these pictures here. They're trying to dig away at the mountain. They've made these lines through here. They're trying to establish the levels. This one's up at Boston looking all the way down to the canyon. See how high this is up here. And this other one is taken in 1907, and you see the little men working down there. They're just digging away at this level. They had to build bridges and switchbacks. They had to deliver water and coal to the steam shovels and trains. It was quite the operation. John D. Rockefeller visited the mine just before World War I. Looking at all the activity on all these levels, and all these trains and shovels at work, he said, quote, "It's the greatest industrial site in the world," unquote. Now this is interesting. With the Boston Consolidated being on top of the mountain, they had to come down all these switchbacks, all these steep switchbacks up in Carfork Canyon, and that was just above Highland Boy. You can see how steep these are right here. And this is a full panoramic shot of it. It's taken by many pictures, though I put them together. So they built this vertical tram that came down the mountainside. They just ran these little cars down the mountainside and then dumped them into this great big steel bin they had down there, and then it met up with the trains that went down to the mill. First, they had to remove all this capping material, or waste, or overburden, they called it. So look at some of these pictures of these waste cars. The first ones were made out of wood. Look at that. I don't think they'd be lasting very long. So let's look at some of these pictures of the equipment they were using. Some great pictures of these steam shovels and these steam trains. See all the men they had working. They had to keep this track cleared, and they had to keep it moved closer to the mountain. Every time the shovel made a pass, they had to pick it up and move it next to the mountain. And the first shovels were on rails, and they had to actually build the rail in front of the shovel to keep it going. But then they started putting these crawler pads on them, and that worked a lot better. Of course, they had to deliver coal and water, get the water to the steam shovels and to the trains. So it was a labor-intense job. It was Daniel Jacqueline's idea to move the waste material to the closest canyon or gulch to keep the costs down as low as possible when they first started. I always wondered how many times they had to keep moving the same material over and over again. Eventually, over time, they decided that the safest level height would be 50 feet. So that's what they established as a 50-foot standard. The mine was always changing. It was always on the move. It was a slow process, but it was still moving constantly. Even when I was working at the mine in the 1970s, I'd come back from my days off and the shovel would be moved and roads would be changed. So it was always on the move. Now this picture is taken in 1926. And you see how the mine's just being really ate away. That mountain's being ate away, and the pit is being formed right here. And these are the pictures 10 years later, 1936, and now they're below the A level. This is when they start naming the levels according to their elevation, like 6340, 6390, etc. So that's the early workings at Bingham Canyon Mine.